The rain fell softly on the cracked pavement outside the small convenience store, each drop creating tiny circles in the puddles that had formed in the uneven concrete. Inside, behind the counter, stood Marcus Chen, a man whose short stature had long ago stopped defining him in his own eyes, though the world seemed determined never to let him forget it. His hands moved with practiced efficiency as he restocked the candy shelf, reaching up to place each item with the careful attention of someone who had learned to adapt to a world not built for him. The bell above the door chimed, and Marcus turned with his customary warm smile, the kind that had become his signature over the 3 years he'd run this modest store in the heart of the city's forgotten neighborhood. But the smile faltered, not from rudeness, but from recognition of pain when he saw the girl who entered. She couldn't have been more than 16, maybe 17. Her dark hair hung wet against her face, and she moved with an uneven gait, supported by a single crutch under her right arm. Her left leg ended just below the knee, the empty pant leg folded and pinned. But it wasn't the physical difference that made Marcus's heart clench. It was the look in her eyes. He'd seen that look before, in his own mirror, years ago. The look of someone who'd been invisible for so long they'd started to believe they deserved to be. "Can I help you find anything?" Marcus asked gently, his voice carrying the slight accent of his Chinese heritage mixed with the warmth of someone who genuinely cared. The girl's eyes darted to him, then away, as if even meeting someone's gaze was too much exposure. "Just looking," she mumbled, moving deeper into the store's narrow aisles. Marcus didn't push. He'd learned long ago that some people needed space before they needed help. He returned to his work, but kept his awareness on her, noting the way she lingered by the instant noodles, her fingers brushing the packages but never quite picking one up. He saw her glance at the price tags, saw her hand move to her pocket and come out with only a few crumpled bills and some change. She was counting, calculating, deciding what she could afford. The store was quiet except for the gentle patter of rain and the hum of the old refrigerator units. Marcus had bought this store with every penny of his savings after his wife Sarah had died 4 years ago, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter, Lily. The life insurance had been enough for the store and a small apartment above it. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, and it had given him a way to be present for Lily while still making a living. The girl finally selected a single package of ramen and a small carton of milk. She approached the counter with her head down, sliding the items forward without looking at him. "That'll be $3.75, Marcus said quietly. She counted out the exact change, her hands trembling slightly. As she scooped up her purchases, Marcus noticed the weariness in her movements, the kind that came not from a single hard day, but from months, maybe years, of hard days strung together. "Wait," Marcus said as she turned to leave. She froze, her shoulders tensing as if expecting confrontation, accusation, rejection, whatever the world had been giving her lately. Marcus reached under the counter and pulled out a granola bar and a banana. These were going to expire today anyway. "Would you mind taking them?" "I hate waste." It was a lie. The granola bar was fresh, and the banana was perfectly ripe. But it was a kind lie, the kind that let someone accept help without feeling like charity. The girl's eyes met his for the first time, really met his, and in that moment, something passed between them, an understanding that transcended words. She saw in him someone who knew what it meant to navigate a world that constantly reminded you of your difference. And he saw in her someone who desperately needed to know she wasn't alone. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly on the words. "What's your name?" Marcus asked as she tucked the items into her small backpack. A pause, then, almost defiantly, as if daring him to mock it, "Emma." "Emma," Marcus repeated with a nod of respect. "I'm Marcus. This is my store. You're welcome here any time." She didn't respond, but the tiniest crack appeared in her armor, a barely perceptible softening around her eyes before she turned and left, the bell chiming her departure. Marcus watched through the rain-streaked window as she limped down the street, her crutch splashing through puddles, and wondered about her story. Where was she going? Where were her parents? Why did she look so utterly, devastatingly alone? That night, after closing the store, Marcus climbed the stairs to the apartment where Lily was already in bed. Her room an explosion of drawings and stuffed animals that made him smile despite his tiredness. He checked on her, kissing her forehead, marveling as he always did that someone like him had helped create someone so perfect. Lily had inherited her mother's height and grace, already tall for 10 years old, already showing signs of the beauty she would become, but she had his heart, his kindness, his determination to see the good in people. The next day, Emma came back, and the day after that. Each time she bought only the bare minimum, a single meal's worth of food, the cheapest items on the shelves, and each time Marcus found a reason to add something extra, always with an excuse that let her keep her dignity. The bruised apple he couldn't sell, the dented can of soup, the day-old bread. On the fourth day, as a warm afternoon sun replaced the rain, Marcus noticed Emma lingering outside the store, looking through the window at a "Help Wanted" sign he'd taped up 3 weeks ago. She stared at it for a long time before finally entering. "Is that job still available?" she asked, her voice still soft but with a thread of desperate hope woven through it. Marcus looked up from the inventory sheet he was working on. "It is. Hours are flexible, mostly afternoons and weekends. It's just stocking, cleaning, manning the register when I need to step away." "I can do that," Emma said quickly. "I'm good with my hands, I'm reliable, I learn fast." "Emma," Marcus interrupted gently, "you don't need to sell yourself to me, but I do need to ask, how old are you?" Her face fell. 17. "But I turn 18 in 3 months, and I can work. I have my papers." "I'm not worried about that," Marcus assured her. "I'm worried about school. Don't you have classes?" Something dark and painful flashed across Emma's face. "I don't go to school anymore." The way she said it, flat, final, with an undercurrent of old hurt, told Marcus there was a story there, one she wasn't ready to share. He didn't push. "Okay," he said simply. "Can you start tomorrow? $4 an hour to start, and we'll see about raises after the first month. 3 hours a day, 5 days a week if you want them." Emma's eyes widened. You're giving me the job, just like that? Should I not? You don't even know me. You don't know if I'll steal from you or—" "Will you steal from me?" Marcus asked calmly. "No." "Then we don't have a problem." He extended his hand across the counter. "Welcome to Chen's Corner Store." Emma stared at his hand like it was a foreign object, something she didn't quite remember how to interact with. Then slowly, almost carefully, she reached out and shook it. Her grip was firm despite her trembling, and when she met his eyes, hers were bright with unshed tears. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you being nice to me?" Marcus smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Because someone was nice to me once, when I needed it most, and because I think maybe you need it now." The first week of Emma's employment was quiet. She came in exactly on time, worked with an intense focus that bordered on desperation, and spoke only when necessary. She was meticulous about every task, double-checking everything, as if afraid a single mistake would cost her the only lifeline she had. Marcus let her work in her comfortable silence, offering only gentle guidance and the occasional attempt at conversation that she usually deflected. But he noticed things. He noticed that her clothes, while clean, were worn and ill-fitting. He noticed that she sometimes swayed on her feet near the end of her shift, the kind of unsteadiness that came from not eating enough. He noticed the way she flinched when customers walked too close, or when someone spoke too loudly, or when anyone stared at her leg for too long. Most heartbreakingly, he noticed the way she watched through the store window when parents came in with their children. Her expression a mixture of longing and pain so acute it hurt to witness. It was Lily who finally broke through Emma's walls. 2 weeks into Emma's employment, Marcus had to bring Lily to the store after school when her usual babysitter called in sick. He'd warned Emma that morning, not wanting to surprise her, but still Emma's face had gone carefully blank when the news was delivered. Lily burst into the store like a small tornado of energy, her backpack bouncing, her ponytail swinging, her voice carrying that particular volume that only 10-year-olds seemed capable of achieving. "Dad! Dad! You won't believe what happened at recess today. Sarah Chen, the other Sarah Chen, not Mom, the one in Mr. Patterson's class, she brought her hamster to school and it escaped and we had to search the whole playground and—" She stopped mid-sentence when she saw Emma standing by the register, having frozen in place like a deer caught in headlights. "Oh," Lily said, her voice dropping to a more manageable level. "Hi, you must be Emma. Dad said you work here now." Emma managed a tight nod. But Lily, blessed with her father's heart and her mother's social ease, didn't sense the tension or chose to ignore it. She approached Emma with an open, genuine smile. "I'm Lily. That's a really pretty name, Emma. Like Emma Watson, right? She's Hermione. Do you like Harry Potter?" I don't know," Emma said, clearly thrown by the direct, uncomplicated kindness in the girl's approach. "You don't know Harry Potter?" Lily's eyes went wide. "Oh my gosh, you have to read them. Or watch the movies. Dad and I watch them all the time, don't we, Dad?" "At least once a month," Marcus confirmed with a grin, watching the exchange with careful attention. Lily set her backpack down and climbed onto the stool behind the counter, pulling out her homework. "I have to do my math homework. It's division. I hate division. Dad's really good at it, though." "Are you good at math, Emma?" The question was asked with such innocent curiosity, with no underlying judgment or mockery, that Emma found herself answering honestly. Yeah, I used to be good at math." "Used to be? You can't forget math. It's like riding a bike. Once you know it forever." Lily paused, then added with complete unself-consciousness. "Well, maybe not exactly like riding a bike for everyone, but you know what I mean. The point is, once you learn something, it's in your brain forever, right?" Marcus tensed, waiting for Emma's reaction to what could have been perceived as an insensitive comment about bikes and legs. But Emma surprised him. The corner of her mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "Right," Emma said softly. "It's in your brain forever." Over the next hour, as Marcus helped customers and Emma stocked shelves, Lily kept up a steady stream of chatter, completely one-sided but somehow not oppressive. She talked about school, about her friends, about the stray cat that had been hanging around their apartment, about the book she was reading, about everything and nothing. And gradually, Emma began to respond. Just a word here, a sentence there, but it was more than Marcus had heard from her in 2 weeks. When Emma's shift ended, Lily looked up from her homework with a bright smile. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Emma nodded. "Good. Maybe you can help me with my homework again. You explained that division problem way better than Dad does. No offense, Dad." "None taken," Marcus said with a laugh. As Emma gathered her things to leave, Lily called out, "Bye, Emma. See you tomorrow." And for the first time since Marcus had met her, Emma smiled. It was small, tentative, like something fragile just emerging into sunlight. But it was real. "See you tomorrow, Lily," she said, and left with something lighter in her step. After the door closed, Lily turned to her father with a serious expression. "Dad, Emma seems really sad. Like, really, really sad. The kind of sad that goes deep down." Marcus moved to his daughter, crouching down so they were eye level. "Yeah, baby. I think she is." "Can we help her?" Like really help her? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. Sometimes people have to want help before you can give it. But we can be kind to her. We can make sure she knows she's not alone. Sometimes that's the most important help of all. Lily considered this, then nodded with the solemn wisdom of a child who understood more than her years should allow. Okay, then that's what we'll do. The weeks that followed brought a slow but steady transformation in Emma. She began arriving early for her shifts, staying late. She smiled more, especially when Lily was around, though the smiles never quite reached her eyes. She started making small talk with regular customers, learning their names, remembering their preferences. But Marcus also noticed the things that didn't change. She never talked about family. She never mentioned friends. When her shift ended, she disappeared into the city streets with no indication of where she was going. And she still had that look sometimes when she thought no one was watching, that deep, bone-tired sadness that spoke of wounds that hadn't healed. It was a cold evening in late October when everything changed. Marcus was closing up the store, Lily beside him counting out the register, when they heard a soft sound outside. A whimper, almost like an injured animal. Marcus moved to the door, peering out into the darkening street. Emma sat huddled against the wall beside his store entrance, her crutch fallen beside her, her body shaking with silent sobs. Her face was pressed against her knees, and even in the dim streetlight, Marcus could see she was soaked through. Whether from rain or from having been there for hours, he couldn't tell. "Emma!" He rushed out, kneeling beside her, not caring that the cold, wet pavement immediately soaked through his pants. "Emma, what happened? Are you hurt?" She didn't respond, couldn't respond, lost in whatever private hell had brought her to this moment. "Dad?" Lily's frightened voice came from the doorway. "Lily, go upstairs and get blankets, now!" His daughter disappeared without question, her footsteps echoing on the stairs. Marcus gently touched Emma's shoulder, and she flinched so violently it broke his heart. "Emma, it's Marcus. You're okay. You're safe. Can you hear me?" A shuddering breath, then a barely audible whisper. "I have nowhere to go." The words hung in the cold air between them, carrying a weight that went beyond their simple meaning. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about every night. This was about a life that had somehow gone so wrong that a 17-year-old girl was sitting on a sidewalk in October with nowhere to go. "How long?" Marcus asked gently. 3 weeks. I've been sleeping in places. The shelter was full." They're always full. 3 weeks. She'd been working for him, showing up every day with that determined smile, and all the while she'd been homeless. Lily returned with an armful of blankets, her eyes wide and frightened. "Is Emma okay?" "She will be," Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. "Emma, look at me." Slowly, painfully, she raised her head. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, her eyes red and swollen. She looked like someone who had been holding on by a thread and had finally reached the end of it. "You're coming upstairs with us," Marcus said firmly. "Right now. No arguments." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Lily, help me get her up." Together, they helped Emma to her feet, retrieved her crutch, and guided her up the stairs to the small apartment above the store. Once inside, Marcus led her to the bathroom. "Take a hot shower. Take as long as you need. Lily will leave some clean clothes outside the door. We'll talk after." He left her there and returned to the living room where Lily stood wringing her hands, looking younger than her 10 years. "Is Emma going to be okay?" she asked in a small voice. Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure she is. Can she stay with us?" It was the question Marcus had been asking himself since the moment he'd found Emma on the sidewalk. His apartment was tiny. 2 bedrooms, barely enough space for him and Lily. He worked constantly just to keep the store afloat, to pay their bills, to save something for Lily's future. Taking in another person, especially a traumatized teenager with needs he could barely fathom, was impractical at best and potentially disastrous at worst. But then he thought about Emma's face, about that look of absolute desolation, about the kindness that Lily had shown her, and the small smiles that had begun to emerge. He thought about his own childhood, about being the different one, the one people stared at, the one who had to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. He thought about Sarah, his late wife, and the way she'd always said that kindness wasn't something you gave only when it was convenient. It was something you gave especially when it wasn't. "Yeah," he said finally. "Yeah, she can stay with us." Lily's face lit up despite the tears tracking down her cheeks. "Really?" "Really. She can have my room. I'll sleep on the couch." "But Dad—" "No arguments, Lily Pad. Now go get those clothes for Emma. Your mom's old things should fit her." When Emma emerged from the bathroom 40 minutes later, clean and dressed in Sarah's old sweats, she looked like a different person. Younger, more vulnerable, more human. Her wet hair hung around her face, and her eyes were still red, but the wild, desperate look had faded. Marcus had made hot chocolate and sandwiches, simple comfort food, the kind that felt like care in a world that had forgotten to care. They sat at the small kitchen table, the three of them, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then Emma's voice, hoarse from crying. "I don't understand. Why are you helping me?" "Because you need help," Marcus said simply. "And because we can. You don't even know me. You don't know what I've done, where I've been. Do you want to tell us?" Emma's hands wrapped around the mug of hot chocolate, seeking its warmth. Her voice when she spoke was distant, like she was recounting someone else's story. "I had a family, a mom, a dad, a little brother. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Then 2 years ago, I got sick. Bone cancer in my left leg. The treatments, they cost everything. My parents sold our house, took out loans, but it wasn't enough. They finally had to choose between continuing treatment or—" She stopped, swallowed hard. They chose amputation. "They saved my life, but they lost everything else." Lily reached across the table, placing her small hand on Emma's. The gesture was so pure, so unconsciously kind that Emma had to stop and collect herself. "After the surgery, things got worse. My dad started drinking. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us in a tiny apartment. My brother, he was only 8. He didn't understand why everything had changed, why his sister was different now, why we couldn't afford anything anymore. One day I came home from the hospital. I'd gone in for a follow-up, and they were just gone. There was a note. It said they couldn't do it anymore, that they were sorry, that I'd be better off in the system." Her voice cracked. "They left me. My own parents left me because I was too expensive to love." Marcus felt tears burning in his own eyes. Beside him, Lily was openly crying. "I went into foster care, but I bounced around. Some families were okay, but most just wanted the check. And the other kids at school, they were cruel. The stares, the comments, the way they'd mimic my walk, call me peg leg, and hop along. I stopped going. I just stopped. The last foster home, they didn't care if I went to school or not. When I turned 17 3 months ago, they basically told me I was too old for them to bother with. So I left. I've been on the streets since then, just trying to survive, until I found your store." The story hung in the air between them, a testament to how cruel the world could be, how quickly safety could dissolve into nightmare. "Emma," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion, "I can't undo what happened to you. I can't give you back what you lost. But I can give you this: a room, a home, a place where you matter. Not because of what you cost or what you look like or what you can give back. Just because you exist, and that's enough." Emma stared at him, disbelief and hope warring on her face. "Why? Why would you do that for me?" Marcus reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "I'm going to tell you something I don't talk about much. When I was growing up, the world made sure I knew I was different. Too short, wrong proportions, not normal. I got good grades, worked hard, did everything right, and still people looked right past me, treated me like I was less. Then I met Sarah, Lily's mom. She was the first person who saw me, really saw me. Not my height, not my difference. Just me. She saved my life by doing that. She taught me that the most radical thing you can do in a cruel world is see someone's full humanity and honor it." He squeezed Emma's hands gently. "I see you, Emma. Not your leg, not your past, not your pain. You. And you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved." Emma broke down completely then, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. And this time, it wasn't the desperate, silent crying of someone trying to hide their pain. It was the deep, cleansing grief of someone finally safe enough to feel. Lily moved around the table and wrapped her arms around Emma, and Marcus joined them, the three of them holding each other as Emma cried out years of hurt and abandonment and fear. When the tears finally subsided, Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't have to," Marcus said firmly. "This isn't a debt. This is family, and family doesn't keep score." "Family," Emma repeated, testing the word like something fragile and precious. "I don't remember what that feels like." "Then we'll remind you," Lily said with absolute conviction. "Every single day." That night, Emma slept in Marcus's bed while he took the couch. For the first time in 3 weeks, she slept without fear, without cold, without the constant vigilance of survival. She slept like someone who had finally found home. The months that followed were not easy. Emma carried wounds that didn't heal overnight, trauma that surfaced in unexpected ways. She had nightmares that woke her screaming. She had panic attacks in crowded places. She had days where the depression was so heavy she couldn't get out of bed. But through it all, Marcus and Lily were there. They didn't try to fix her. They didn't treat her like a broken thing that needed repair. They just loved her, steadily and unconditionally, until slowly, she began to believe she was worthy of that love. Marcus helped Emma get her GED, studying with her late at night after the store closed. He drove her to appointments, helped her navigate the maze of social services, filled out endless paperwork to become her legal guardian. He never complained about the cramped apartment or the extra expenses or the disrupted routine. He just did what needed to be done, with the quiet determination that had always defined him. Lily appointed herself Emma's personal cheerleader and protector. She introduced Emma to her friends, glared down anyone who looked at Emma wrong, and celebrated every small victory like it was monumental. When Emma passed her GED exam, Lily made a cake and hung a banner and insisted they have a proper party, just the three of them. Emma, for her part, slowly came back to life. She started smiling more, laughing at Lily's jokes, engaging in conversations without looking for the nearest exit. She started to believe, tentatively at first, and then with growing confidence, that maybe she could have a future, that maybe she wasn't just a burden or a mistake or someone too broken to deserve good things. She also became an integral part of their small family. She helped Lily with homework, taught her how to braid hair, listened to her endless stories with genuine interest. She took over more responsibilities at the store, managing inventory, handling difficult customers, even suggesting improvements that increased business. She became Marcus's partner in running Chen's corner store, and neither of them could imagine it without her. It was early spring, nearly a year after Emma had collapsed outside the store, when everything shifted again. They were having dinner, a nightly ritual they'd established where everyone shared the best and worst parts of their day, when Lily suddenly announced, "Emma, there's a career fair at school next week. You should come with me." Emma looked up from her plate, surprised. "A career fair? Lily, that's for students." "So? You're 18 now. You have your GED. You should go to college." The suggestion hung in the air, absurd and impossible, and yet somehow not. "College," Emma repeated slowly. "Lily, I can't afford college." "There are scholarships," Marcus interjected, something thoughtful in his expression. "Financial aid. Community college to start, then transfer." "It's possible, Emma." "I wouldn't even know where to begin." "We'll figure it out," Lily said with absolute confidence. "That's what families do." That night, long after Lily had gone to bed, Marcus and Emma sat at the kitchen table with a laptop, researching options. Marcus had been thinking about this for months, watching Emma help Lily with increasingly complex homework, seeing her natural intelligence and hunger for knowledge resurface. "What would you study?" he asked. "If you could do anything?" Emma was quiet for a long time, her fingers tracing patterns on the table. "Before I got sick, I wanted to be a social worker. I wanted to help kids like me. Kids who fall through the cracks." "Then that's what you'll do." "Marcus, it's a 4-year degree, maybe more. The cost will make it work." He closed the laptop and looked at her seriously. "Emma, you've been working in my store for almost a year. You've helped it grow, helped me manage everything. You're family, and family invests in each other's dreams. I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." He paused, then added, "Actually, I have a proposal for you. A business proposal." Emma raised her eyebrows. "What kind of proposal?" "I've been thinking about expanding the store. Maybe adding a small cafe area, bringing in more fresh food options for the neighborhood. It would require someone with vision and energy to manage it, someone I trust completely." "You're talking about me. I'm talking about a partnership. You go to school part-time, work here the rest of the time, and we grow this business together. You'll earn a real salary, enough to help pay for school and save for your future. And eventually, when you're ready, maybe you take over the whole thing. Or maybe we open more locations. The point is, we do it together." Emma stared at him, overwhelmed. "You'd really do that? Make me your partner?" "Emma, you've been my partner for months now in everything but name. This just makes it official." She started to cry again, but these were different tears, tears of joy, of possibility, of a future she'd stopped letting herself imagine. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." Marcus smiled, that warm, kind smile that had first made Emma feel human again. "Thank you for letting us love you." The career fair led to applications, which led to acceptance letters, which led to Emma starting classes at the community college that fall. She studied social work with a minor in psychology, driven by her own experiences and a burning desire to prevent other kids from suffering what she had. She was brilliant at it. Her professors marveled at her insight, her empathy, her ability to connect with the material on a level beyond academic. She maintained a perfect GPA while working at the store, while helping Lily with school, while slowly transforming Chen's corner store into something more than just a convenience shop. A community hub where people felt welcome, seen, valued. The cafe edition was a hit. Emma created a warm, inviting space with secondhand furniture, local art on the walls, and affordable, nutritious food. She hired other young people who'd had hard starts, kids from the neighborhood who needed chances, who needed someone to believe in them the way Marcus had believed in her. Lily grew too, from an enthusiastic 10-year-old into a thoughtful teenager who'd learned from both Marcus and Emma that kindness was not weakness, that seeing people's humanity was not naive, that love was not finite but rather something that grew when shared. And Marcus watched it all with quiet pride. His little store becoming a beacon in their neighborhood, his makeshift family becoming something real and solid and beautiful. But it was 3 years later, at Emma's college graduation, when the world truly saw what had grown from that rainy day when a lonely girl had walked into a small store run by a kind-hearted man. Emma had been asked to give the student speech, representing all the non-traditional students who'd overcome obstacles to earn their degrees. She stood at the podium in her cap and gown, her crutch beside her, looking out at the crowd of hundreds. Somewhere in that audience sat Marcus and Lily, who'd gotten dressed up for the occasion, who'd brought flowers and a handmade banner that said, "We're so proud of you." Lily had been crying since they'd arrived, so overwhelmed with emotion she could barely speak. Emma's voice was steady as she began to speak. 4 years ago, I was invisible. Not metaphorically, actually invisible. I was 17, living on the streets, convinced that I was too broken, too different, too expensive to deserve love. I'd been abandoned by my birth family, failed by the system, rejected by peers who couldn't see past my disability. I decided that maybe everyone was right. Maybe I was too much trouble. Maybe I'd be better off just disappearing. Then I met a man named Marcus Chen. He was a single father running a small convenience store in a poor neighborhood, working himself to exhaustion to provide for his daughter. He had every reason to ignore me, to see me as just another customer or potential problem. But he didn't. Marcus saw me. He saw past the crutch and the fear and the walls I'd built. He saw a person who needed help, and he helped me. Not because it was easy or convenient, not because there was anything in it for him, but because he believed that everyone deserves dignity, that everyone deserves a chance, that everyone deserves to be loved. He gave me a job when I had nothing. He gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. He gave me a family when mine had abandoned me. His daughter Lily taught me what unconditional love looked like. Together they reminded me that I was human, that I mattered, that my worth wasn't determined by my body or my past or my circumstances. Because of Marcus and Lily, I didn't just survive, I thrived. I'm standing here today with a degree in social work, with a job already lined up at a nonprofit serving at-risk youth, with hope for my future that I never thought possible. And I'm standing here to tell every person in this audience who's ever felt invisible, who's ever felt too broken to deserve good things, who's ever wondered if kindness still exists in this world. It does, and it can change everything. Marcus taught me that heroism doesn't require superpowers or grand gestures. Sometimes it's just seeing someone, really seeing them and choosing to care. Sometimes it's opening your door and your heart to someone everyone else has given up on. Sometimes it's being steady and patient and kind day after day until the broken person realizes they're not actually broken. They're just healing. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be for other kids what Marcus was for me. A person who sees them. A person who believes in them. A person who reminds them that they matter, always and unconditionally. Marcus, Lily, I know you're out there. I want you to know that you didn't just change my life. You gave me one. Everything good that comes from me, every kid I help, every life I touch, that's your legacy. That's what happens when someone chooses love over indifference, compassion over judgment, action over apathy. Thank you. Thank you for seeing the lonely, one-legged girl sitting outside your store and deciding she was worth saving. Thank you for proving that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. And thank you for choosing me. By the time Emma finished speaking, there wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium. People stood, applauding, many crying openly. In the audience, Marcus held Lily as they both wept with pride and joy and gratitude. After the ceremony, in the chaos of photos and congratulations, Emma found them. She hugged Marcus tightly, this man who'd given her everything, and whispered in his ear, "You're the best father I could have ever asked for." Marcus pulled back, tears streaming down his face, and cupped her cheeks in his hands. "And you're the daughter I didn't know I was waiting for. You and Lily, you're both my girls, my family, my heart. Lily threw her arms around both of them, and they stood there in the middle of the crowded hallway, holding each other, three people who'd found their way to each other through pain and chance and the simple, radical act of choosing love. A photographer from the local newspaper approached them, asking if they'd be willing to be interviewed about Emma's speech. What started as a small local story exploded into something much bigger. The story of the lonely one-legged girl and the dwarf single dad who'd taken her in went viral, shared millions of times across social media. People were moved by the raw honesty, by the proof that kindness still existed in a cynical world. Donations poured in. Not because Marcus or Emma had asked for them, but because people wanted to be part of something good. They wanted to contribute to the ripple effect of compassion that had started in a small convenience store and was now spreading across the country. With the unexpected funds, Marcus and Emma were able to expand their vision far beyond what they'd imagined. They opened 3 more community stores in underserved neighborhoods, each with a cafe area and a commitment to hiring young people who needed second chances. They established a scholarship fund for students like Emma, kids who'd aged out of foster care, kids with disabilities, kids who'd been told they'd never amount to anything. Emma graduated from her master's program 2 years later and opened a nonprofit organization called SEEN, dedicated to providing comprehensive support for at-risk youth. Housing, education, mental health services, job training, everything she wished she'd had. And true to her promise, she spent her days seeing the invisible kids, the ones everyone else had given up on, and reminding them that they mattered. Lily, inspired by both her father and Emma, decided to study medicine with a focus on prosthetics and rehabilitation. She wanted to help people like Emma not just survive their physical challenges, but thrive despite them. At 16, she was already volunteering at clinics, already showing the same compassionate heart that had made her reach out to Emma all those years ago. And Marcus continued doing what he'd always done, showing up every day with kindness, with patience, with the unwavering belief that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity. His stores became known not just for good prices, but for good hearts. People came not just to shop, but to be seen, to be valued, to be reminded that they were part of a community that cared. 5 years after Emma's graduation, on a warm June evening, they gathered in the original Chen's Corner store for a special celebration. Emma had just been recognized as Social Worker of the Year by the state, and Lily had been accepted into her top-choice medical school with a full scholarship. But more than accolades or achievements, they were celebrating something deeper, the family they'd built from fragments, the love they'd chosen when it would have been easier to walk away, the proof that one act of kindness could change the trajectory of multiple lives. The store was packed with people whose lives had been touched by their story. Former employees who'd gone on to college, kids from Emma's program who'd found their footing, neighbors who'd watched the transformation of their community, local reporters who'd followed their journey from the beginning. Marcus stood to give a toast, and the room fell silent. He looked older now, his hair graying at the temples, laugh lines deep around his eyes. But his presence was as warm and steady as ever. "When my wife Sarah died," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the quiet room, "I thought I understood what it meant to be strong. I thought strength was about bearing pain silently, about protecting the people you love from harsh realities, about never letting them see you break. But Emma taught me different. Emma taught me that real strength is vulnerability. It's admitting when you need help. It's letting people in even when you're terrified they'll leave. It's choosing to heal instead of staying broken because at least broken is familiar." He turned to Emma, his eyes bright with emotion. "You came into my store as a scared, hurting girl who thought she was invisible. But you were never invisible to me. From that very first day, I saw your strength, your resilience, your enormous capacity for love. And watching you grow into this incredible woman who's changing lives every single day, That's been the greatest privilege of my life. You didn't just let us help you, you helped us right back. You taught Lily what courage looks like. You taught me that family is bigger than biology. You taught all of us that our worst moments don't define us, how we rise from them does. He raised his glass. To Emma, to family, to the radical transformative power of seeing people and choosing to love them exactly as they are. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Emma stood, tears flowing freely, and hugged Marcus with the fierce grip of someone who'd learned that love wasn't something to be guarded, but something to be given freely. Lily joined them, as she always did, and the three of them stood together. A father who'd lost his wife but found a way to keep loving, a teenager who'd been abandoned but learned to trust again, and a young woman who dedicated her life to making sure no other kid ever felt as alone as she once had. Later that night, after everyone had gone and they were cleaning up the store together, Emma paused in her work and looked around. At the walls covered with photos of employees, past and present. At the community board filled with job postings and support group flyers and thank you notes from people whose lives had been touched by this place. At Marcus and Lily, laughing together as they swept the floor. "You know what's crazy?" she said softly. Marcus looked up. "What's that?" 4 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost everything, I just hadn't found it yet. That's because the best things in life aren't the ones we start with, Marcus said, walking over to her. They're the ones we build, together. Emma smiled. That full, genuine smile that had taken so long to emerge, but now came easily. I used to think that being abandoned by my birth family meant I was unlovable. But now I understand. They didn't reject me because there was something wrong with me. They just weren't capable of seeing my worth. That was their failure, not mine. And you don't owe them your pain, Lily added, joining the conversation. You don't owe them anything. You survived. You thrived. And now you're helping other people do the same. That's not just success. That's victory. Marcus put his arms around both his daughters, these two remarkable young women who'd taught him as much as he'd taught them. You know what I think? I think the world is full of people who are waiting to be seen. Waiting for someone to look past the surface and recognize their humanity. And I think we're proof that when you choose to see people, when you choose to love them, miracles happen. Not miracles, Emma corrected gently. Just love. Love is always enough. They stood there in the quiet store, surrounded by evidence of what love could build when given the chance. And they knew, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning. That every person they helped would go on to help others. That every act of kindness would ripple outward in ways they couldn't predict or measure. That the lonely, one-legged girl and the dwarf single dad had started something that would long outlive them. A legacy of seeing people, of choosing compassion, of proving that the most radical act in a harsh world is simply to love without condition. Years later, when reporters would ask Emma about that first day in the store, about the moment that changed everything, she would smile and say, "It wasn't a moment. It was a million moments. It was Marcus offering me a granola bar with dignity. It was Lily asking me about Harry Potter like I was normal. It was choosing, every single day, to believe I deserved good things, even when everything in my past told me I didn't. But if I had to choose one moment," she'd continue, "it would be this. Marcus looked at me, really looked at me, and he saw a person, not a disability, not a problem, not a burden, just a person who needed help. And he helped me. That's it. That's the whole story. He saw me, and he helped me. And because of that, I learned to see myself. And now I spend my life helping other people see themselves, too. That's what love does. It doesn't fix you. It reminds you that you were never broken in the first place. You were just waiting to be seen." On Emma's 30th birthday, Marcus surprised her with something she'd never expected. He'd been saving money for years, working with lawyers and social workers, navigating the complex adoption system. And on that day, he presented her with adoption papers. "I know you're an adult," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "I know it doesn't change anything legally or practically, but I wanted you to know that in every way that matters, you're my daughter. You always have been. But if you want it, I'd like to make it official." Emma stared at the papers, at the line where she could sign and finally, officially, permanently become Emma Chen. All those years ago, she'd lost the family she was born into. But here, in this small store with this extraordinary man and his remarkable daughter, she'd found the family she was meant for. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes, Dad. I want that. I want it more than anything." When she signed her name, when Marcus pulled her into his arms, when Lily cried happy tears, they all felt it. The closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. Not because Emma needed a father's name to be whole, but because sometimes putting words and official stamps on the bonds we've built is a way of honoring them, of saying, "This is real, this is forever, this is family." The local newspaper ran the story under the headline, "Love Makes a Family. Single dad adopts woman he saved a decade ago." But those who knew them understood it wasn't quite accurate. Marcus hadn't saved Emma. They'd saved each other. They'd chosen each other. And in doing so, they'd created something beautiful and radical and utterly transformative. If you're watching this story right now, wherever you are in the world, I want you to take a moment and think about the Emmas in your life. Think about the people who seem invisible, who are struggling in silence, who've been told they're too broken or too different or too much trouble. What if you saw them? Really saw them? What if you offered help not because it was convenient or easy, but because it was right? What if you chose to love someone when the world had given them every reason to believe they were unlovable? Marcus wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. He was just a man running a small store who saw a hurting girl and decided to care. That's it. And that simple act changed everything. Not just for Emma, but for Lily, for their community, for the thousands of kids Emma has helped through her nonprofit, for everyone whose life has been touched by their story. You have that power too. Every single one of you watching this right now, you have the power to see someone, to help someone, to remind someone that they matter, and you never know that one act of kindness might be the thing that changes their entire trajectory. That saves their life. That gives them hope when they'd lost it all. So I want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from right now? What part of this story touched you the most? Was it Marcus's unwavering kindness? Emma's incredible resilience? Lily's pure-hearted love? Or maybe it was something else, something that connected to your own life, your own struggles, your own journey. Your voice matters to us. Your story matters. And we want to create a community here where people who believe in the power of compassion can come together and remind each other that love always wins. Always. So drop a comment telling us where you're from and what moved you. Hit that like button if this story reminded you why kindness matters. And make sure you're subscribed because we're going to keep bringing you stories like this. Real stories about real people who prove that humanity is still worth believing in. Remember, you are seen. You matter. And you have the power to change someone's world, just like Marcus changed Emma's. All you have to do is choose love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of a community that believes in seeing people, in loving people, in changing the world one act of kindness at a time. Until next time, keep choosing love. Keep seeing people. Keep being the light in someone's darkness. Because that's how we change the world. one heart at a time.